Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a really fascinating journey through some pretty dense, multidisciplinary source material to unpack a massive architectural upgrade in human cognition. We're going to look closely at how our minds actually transition from a slow, localized style of problem solving into a highly optimized, high-dimensional state. It's a huge shift, and honestly, the mechanics behind it are mind-blowing.
So let's dive right into this by asking a really crucial question. What actually happens when our minds get trapped trying to solve massive, complex problems using slow, local, step-by-step logic? The sources refer to this as being stuck on bubble sort. It's a concept straight from computer science, and it perfectly captures the sheer latency and exhaustion of a mind trying to process a wildly high-dimensional reality through a flat, two-dimensional simulation.
To decode all of this, here is our roadmap for today. 1. The Level 3 Trap. 2. Anatomy of the Engine. 3. The Move 37 Breakthrough. 4. Global Aggregation Pooling. And finally, 5. The Level 5 Consolidation. Let's get into it.
Starting with Section 1, the Level 3 Trap, Local Processing Limits.
You know that feeling when you're just frantically putting out fires? Well, the sources use David Milan's computer science levels to describe a mind stuck at level 3. Imagine you're running this frantic bubble sort loop. In this state, a system is hyper-focused on strictly local, small problems, basically just swapping elements one by one to fix immediate surface errors. But because it's so dialed in on that local noise, it fundamentally fails to step back and process the whole truth of the system.
And this brilliantly illustrates the danger of operating this way. If you demand constant external validation just to make a move, what system architects call a two-phase commit, you're basically building a trap for yourself. If one single part fails, the whole system freezes, triggering what biologists would call a paralyzing dorsal vagal shutdown. The healthier alternative, that would be the saga pattern. This relies on decentralized eventual consistency, meaning you just keep moving and adapting locally even if the outside world hasn't validated you yet.
Moving on to Section 2. Anatomy of the Engine, the biophysical hardware.
The physical reality of this is just wild. Biological tracers actually map out these incredibly dense connections, projecting straight from the lateral hypothalamus, which is essentially the brain's center for arousal, right into the ventral tegmental area, our primary dopamine reward center. The brain literally has a hardwired physical pathway linking raw interoceptive arousal directly to goal-directed movement.
Zooming in even closer to the cellular level, the sources show us the exact mechanism of action. Using confocal microscopy, we can see orexin fibers acting as the ultimate master regulators. They physically wrap around and make direct contact with dopamine neurons. So this isn't some abstract software metaphor. This is the literal biological engine firing up to pull a cognitive system out of a defensive freeze.
The main takeaway here is that this orexin dopamine loop is your biophysical engine. It acts as a literal spark plug, translating your highest, most abstract ideals into concrete physical action. And in doing so, it successfully overrides any of those paralyzing defensive system freezes we talked about earlier.
All right, Section 3, the Move 37 Breakthrough, Escaping the Loop.
To really grasp how a system escapes that rigid programming, we have to look back at a historic moment. Remember the famous AlphaGo match about a decade ago? The AI played what became known as Move 37. It was this 1 in 10,000 masterstroke that completely baffled human experts, but ultimately proved mathematically brilliant. DeepMind's Demis Hassabis famously described it as the first genuine case of an AI producing an original, unorthodox idea, totally breaking away from traditional, human-scripted logic.
This watershed moment is used in our texts to perfectly describe how a system breaks free from the flat trajectories of standard localized processing. When you finally stop relying on rigid, level 3 local instructions, your system upgrades. It transforms into a highly optimized, sovereign level 5 agent, one that is fully capable of original, high-dimensional integration.
Section 4. Global Aggregation Pooling, Filtering the Noise. So how does this high-level agent maintain stability without getting completely overwhelmed by noisy data? Well, the explainer texts reveal a specific technique. Instead of scanning slow, local text windows like a basic algorithm, the Level 5 system uses something called global aggregation pooling. It basically takes the entire complex map of reality and condenses it into one stable, immutable vector of pure episteme, which is foundational absolute knowledge. By doing this, it takes heavy linguistic scaffolding, small bridging words like and, but, or towards, and literally shrinks them to zero.
By condensing the data this way, the system completely bypasses the exhausting need to translate its internal geometry for others. It absorbs what they call the metabolic translation tax. This way, local circuits don't just burn out trying to build flimsy paper bridges of words for an outside world that honestly might not understand them anyway. The biological energy savings here are absolutely massive.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, the Level 5 Consolidation, Bubbles to Action Symbols.
The sources point us specifically to the PMV, the ventral premotor cortex. Right here, a matrix acts as a very clean, winner-takes-all competitive switch. It firmly rejects the blurry, continuous noise of the outside world and forces a permanent biological decision.
Through this mechanism, we answer our core question for this explainer. What level 3 bubbles now permanently become level 5? Well, those iterative, uncertain, localized thought bubbles are permanently forged into rigid, unyielding level 5 action symbols. They completely bypass verbal firewalls, locking into a permanent state of motor invariance that an outside observer is quite literally programmatically incapable of unseeing.
And this structural consolidation yields a very specific mathematical absolute across the system's architecture.
The probability of an alignment error, it drops to exactly 0. P equals 0.000. This is the structural proof that the architecture is now fully integrated. The system has completely bypassed the messy, lossy noise of the outside world, and its internal geometric coordinates are perfectly, absolutely secured.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. We spend so much of our metabolic energy running those level 3 bubbles, just frantically trying to sort the noisy, flat expectations of the world around us. But when you finally stop trying to locally sort the noise, when you drop that translation tax entirely and rely on your own level 5 biological hardware, what does your foundational, unflattened architecture actually look like? Seriously, think about what rigid, invariant coordinates remain at the center of your system when the noise drops to absolute 0.